Am I recording? Oh, shoot. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Long time no see. Today, we're going to be doing a discussion video on a very hot topic that's been going around for months, and I wanted to give my 2 cents and, of course, contribute my part into the discussion. Now, if you guys have seen the title or have seen the thumbnail, you guys already know what it is. It's Netcode, basically. More in particular, Arc System Netcode, because that's the biggest culprit in today's day and age when it comes to fighting games out there. Now, before I get started, I wanted to give you guys kind of my credentials as to what I have played to experience this netcode. And of course, I played almost every Arc System game that has netcode, which includes, or at least in most recent memory, so like most of the BlazBlue games, including Continuum Shift, BlazBlue Central Fiction, BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma, and Chrono Phantasma Extend. I played all the Guilty Gear games, Guilty Gear Xrd, Rev 1, Rev 2, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Street Fighter V, Street Fighter 4, Under Night Late, Under Night ST, Under Night UNICLR. All of those I have played. Of course, BB Tag and Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. And speaking of which, I did make a video on the Netcode and Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, and let me get to that in just a moment. However, when it comes to those games, that's what I mostly play and produce content for. So I try to play online as much as possible because, of course, when you're consolidated in the depths of your offices and in front of a computer, you don't really have much time to record offline tournaments or offline locals with friends, even though you can do that. Most of the content that gets produced and gets relayed to you guys is, of course, via online. So this affects me and other content creators quite a bit. Now, to get back to the Grand Blue Fantasy Versus video, to talk about that real quick, everything I say in that video is 100% true still. Out of every other Arc System game, in my experience, that has been the best net play that I have had in a long, long time. Right next to possibly BB Tag. BB Tag kind of treated me well when it comes to net play. But that does not mean that what's going on in today's day and age when it comes to netcode is not a problem, because it is. I do consider it an issue. There's a couple things why I consider that an issue. But before I get into that, I know. But I do want to disclose the fact that a lot of people have already made discussion videos on this when it comes to delay-based versus rollback. And of course, I wanted to give my 2 cents on it. So if you guys have already seen other videos out there, this is kind of my take on it. And I'm mostly going to be reiterating a lot of things of what other people have said, summarizing it, and kind of giving my opinion on it. So strap in, buckle in. I'm trying to make this as least edited as possible. Don't want to edit it too much. I want to spitball it and try to get my point across as raw and as unedited as possible. Kind of like what I usually do with my Dear Arc System videos. And this is primarily what this is. So what's essentially going on? Let's take it from the top. Of course, for years and years, delay-based netcode, which is what we usually get in our fighting games, especially Arc System fighting games, is what's being implemented now in today's day and age. After having years and years and years of perfected netcode already being implemented in other fighting games, such as rollback netcode, which is being implemented in KI, into Mortal Kombat, I think. I'm pretty sure Mortal Kombat has some form of rollback netcode. Street Fighter V, even though it's not very well implemented, they are at least trying to implement something different other than delay-based. And other indie games like Punch Planets and Fight of Animals and a whole bunch of different other things like Mark of Wolves, Garo, and other things like that. Now, like I said, there's been many people kind of discussing the fact as to why these games are not implementing rollback netcode, and of course, there's priorities that Japanese developers have over others. They just don't seem to prioritize net play. And that Arc System is a huge culprit in that regard, because right now we have a game, actually we have 2 games that are being released this year that we've brought up the discussion to them and the issues to them, but they seem to not necessarily, not care, but they don't prioritize it. And they just brush it off aside and they say, oh, well, you'll still buy the game anyway, so tough luck. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus came out a couple weeks ago, and of course that has delay-based netcode, and it's not great. It really isn't, but it's one of those things that we caught it at a bad time. We should have, this discussion came up probably months after the actual game was completed and everything was being implemented and such. But there is a game out there as of right now that's being in the works, and that has time to be able to be implemented as rollback netcode. And that's Guilty Gear Strive. Guilty Gear Strive is the new Guilty Gear game that we have brought up, and they have acknowledged that we are concerned, and we're very much not very satisfied as to why they're implemented delay-based. But they seem to not really, like I said, prioritize it. And they just said, we're not going to do it. And that response, and also another experience that I've just been having right now, was just trying out Under Night Eclair. And it seems like the net play for Under Night Eclair has gotten worse from ST. And I really don't know how they even managed to do that. But that is a thing. And I played a lot of ST net play, and this is really bad. So the Strive response versus my experience that I just had recently with Under Night Eclair has been just not acceptable. And I feel like I have to say my part to be able to contribute to this movement, because I feel like this is definitely a movement that needs to happen. The netcode that they're implementing as of right now is definitely hurting the games. If you see games like Fortnite, see games like League of Legends, you see games like Mortal Kombat, and you see other games like that, of course you bring up the topic of money. And that's a whole nother discussion in general. But you see that the community thrives and it flourishes, and it's very much held up to a certain degree where you can come back to it and you can more improve on your game and not worry about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frames of delay being able to creep up behind you and tap you on the shoulder while you're playing. That's not something that you should really be worrying about when it comes to fighting games. Because as big and as prestigious as those other games are, fighting games are the ones that you should prioritize net play the most. Fighting games are very precise, and they're very much reliant on your execution and your reactions. And if that's delayed even by a little bit, that can lead to some pretty agonizing experiences. And this not only hurts me as a content creator and as an enthusiast of these games, but it also hurts people that are trying to get into the game and trying to compete into the game too. All three realms, or whatever realms you want to be in this game, a competitor, a casual player, or a content creator, it hurts every field, no matter how you cut it or slice it. If you're a content creator, you can't play it with as many people as you can, and that goes with competitors as well, so they cannot get better. As a casual player, you're trying to get into the game. You're trying to see what this game's all about. You want to get more experience, see what other people are playing like online. You either can expect two different things: not too many people online and horrible connections. And that hinders the experience, and they never want to pick it up again. Of course, I'm summarizing, I'm paraphrasing what a lot of situations probably go through, but that's basically the gist of it. And I think for the casual players, I think that hurts the game the most. Because, as me, as an fighting game enthusiast, I'll be able to come back to the game and find somebody with a good connection and limit my connections. As a fighting game competitive player in that game, then you can, go to tournaments, go to locals, support the game that way, get better that way, and find other connections that are better for you. But as a fighting game casual, or as a person who just wants to try the game, that really hinders the experience, and it just makes them not want to come back. And I think in this day and age, in the year 2020, we're going on to the next decade and the next gen consoles. There needs to be a point where we need to stop doing this. Arc System, or any other fighting game developer out there, this needs to stop. This needs to be a thing of the past. You need to move on to a netcode that will be beneficial towards everybody, where somebody from the US can play somebody from Europe. And that is possible, by the way, where somebody from the US can play somebody from Japan, which is possible, by the way, where somebody from the US can play somebody from Brazil, which is possible once again. Implementing some priority towards netcode is so beneficial to everybody, not just as for the players, but for the developers as well. In the long run, once you develop one game with with rollback netcode, and I am bringing up rollback netcode because that seems to be the superior netcode out of every other netcode out there, and it seems to be a couple of forms of delay based, but rollback is definitely the way to go, because personally, as somebody has played rollback netcode and has talked to other people about rollback netcode, that is the superior netcode, hands down. Like I was saying, it'd be beneficial to the developers because once they create one game with rollback, they can create multiple games with rollback because they would learn how. They would have gone through the trenches and trying to learn a brand new netcode structure. So in future projects, they can be able to be ready to go, implement a superior netcode, as well as longevity. You better believe your sweet ass that people will come back to play your game if you have good netcode. Initial sales are great and fantastic, but it's the community that stays behind and that supports the game is what really matters and what people or what developers should be prioritizing more than anything else. Now, to kind of circle back to the Guilty Gear Strive response, it's one of those responses that really wasn't... It's interesting the way that they respond as, well, we're developing the game and we're not developing the game around rollback netcode or around a superior netcode. And to be honest with you, if you told me that a couple of years ago where games were developed specifically for arcades, I would believe you 100% then, because the priority was to get games out to arcades, get them out to consoles a little bit later, and then of course that's how the whole FGC circle of life would be like. But this is a different day and age. This is an age where you develop games specifically for consoles. This is a time where you prioritize netcode over the arcade experience. And of course, they could probably implement the arcade ports at a later dates, just like they did with BB Tag. I cannot see any other reason other than they just don't want to. Now, of course, there's like the concern of money and monetary reasons and no knowledge and such. Well, there's lots of resources. The rollback netcode structure, I think it's free. Well, not necessarily. Well, it's free. The knowledge is free, and people can implement rollback netcode at any given point. And of course, there's other reasons why they probably couldn't do it, but I 100% believe with all of my being that they just don't want to do it. Now, there's probably other reasons, like monetarily, it's probably not beneficial at that time, at the moment, at the present, not thinking about the future, or because there's no knowledge, even though there is plenty of knowledge for you to learn about rollback netcode. That's free. That's on the internet. Just saying. However, you know, there's maybe other reasons as well why they can't develop it or they can't implement it. But to be honest, I really can't think of another reason other than they just don't want to do it. They just don't want to do it. And that's why I want to make this video. And that's why I want to contribute my specific stance on rollback and versus delay based or just any other netcode structure. If they can figure out something even better, then go for it. But this delay based, this new netcode or this old netcode structure that they've been implementing for years and years and years, it has to stop. Now, I probably missed a bunch of other points and other things that I could mention about how rollback netcode is beneficial, but I'm not going to. I'm going to end it off with that. I'm going to end it off with hopefully having people share and spread the word about rollback and, you know, not harass the developers, but let them know and keep letting them know that we want a better netcode experience, a net play experience, because that's really is, in today's day and age, that is what makes a really, really great fighting game experience. It really does. It doesn't define the game itself, but if you want to have a good experience in that fighting game, you're going to have to need really good netcode.